Okay, how we doing, everyone? Let's get to our next P, and that would be place. Now, it sounds funny to call it place because we're really talking about retailing. We're really talking about channels. We're really talking about supply chain management. But, you know, decades ago, the marketing professor needed to create a framework for a marketing textbook, okay? He had to talk about price, he had to talk about product, he had to talk about promo, and the last thing was really channels. Well, 4 P's and a C, or 4 P's and an R, wasn't very catchy. So he needed a P, and he called it place. Okay? So when we think about place and where we buy goods and services, we have to think about what kind of signal that sends to the consumer. So, off the top of your head, let's talk about Ferrari. I like cars. Let's talk about Ferrari. In the United States of America, in your head, how many Ferrari dealerships are there? Come up with a number. I'm going to hit pause. You think about it for 10 seconds. So what number was that in your head of Ferrari dealerships? Was it 100? I mean, it can't be like Toyota, right? Toyota, there's probably, in the state of New Jersey, in the state of Pennsylvania, in the state of Delaware, there might be, I don't know, 100 Toyota dealerships just in these 3 states. So is it 100? Or is it more like Mercedes or Porsche? You know, whatever number you had in your head, the answer was 33. There are 33 Ferrari dealerships in the United States. When you have a product that's that exclusive, it can't be available everywhere. I mean, let's talk about watches for a second. You know, if you think about Seiko, you can buy a Seiko pretty much anywhere. A Casio, pretty much anywhere, right? But then you get to, say, like Tag Heuer, okay? Okay, it needs to be a pretty respectable jewelry store or department store. And then you get the Rolex. Well, there's very few department stores that carry Rolex. A few, okay? But very few department stores carry Rolex. Okay, then think about a Patek Philippe. There's no department stores, and probably most jewelry stores don't even carry it. It has to be a high-end watch store to carry something, or Hublot. You know, no department stores you're going to find Hublot. You know, the place of where the product or service is available is a function of the product of itself. You know, here we have an example of Estee Lauder wanting to have a more premium, you know, so they go into Dillard's, they go into Macy's, and this was a while ago. There's no way Estee Lauder should have been in Sears, you know, because Sears and JCPenney's and Kohl's are, you know, kind of a little lower down the food chain, where Macy's and Dillard's are a proper department store, you know. Now NARS is also a little bit more premium, okay? Should be Dillard's and Macy's. I don't know why it's in JCPenney's. What we would be looking for is a makeup or cosmetics company that would be more geared for Kohl's, Sears, and JCPenney's, and not Macy's and Dillard's. Price point wise, promo wise. So this whole conversation leads us into the 3 types of distribution intensity. Okay? Intensive is exactly that. Everywhere it possibly can be. You know, when we say intensive, we're talking about soft drinks, pens, gum, candy, something you can buy pretty much anywhere. Aspirin, Tylenol. Okay? So if intensive is everywhere, the complete opposite is exclusive. This is the Ferrari example. Okay? The Ferrari example of there's only 33 places you can buy it. This is the Patek Philippe example. Okay. Selective doesn't necessarily mean premium, but it does mean specific. You know, when we talk about cameras, it's not like cameras cost, you know, like high-end DSLR cameras. Sure, you can go to Best Buy and get some low-end DSLR, but if you want the high-end and all the lenses and everything like that, you need to go to a specialty store. Baseball cards, okay? It's not like baseball cards cost a lot of money, but if you really want a good selection of baseball cards, you got to go to a baseball card shop. My kids like radio-controlled things. You got to go to a hobby shop to get the little rockets that blast off and to get the remote-controlled boats and cars and things. Those are selective. You know, they're not necessarily premium and exclusive, but they're specific and not as available as intensive, but also not as limited as exclusive. When we look at the types of retailers we have here in the United States, we can talk about food, we can talk about general merch, we can talk about service. Okay, these are relatively self-explanatory. Okay, we don't need to do a deep dive in there. And general merch, which is the more common of those categories, we have high-end, big-time department stores. So think Macy's, full-line discount. Okay. Think Kohl's or Target. Drugstores, CVS, Walgreens. Category specialists. This would be like a Dick's or a Carrabba's. Very discount with narrow but deep assortment. You know, extreme value, everyday low prices, dollar store, off-price kind of outlet stuff. Specialty. You know, what would be a good specialty example? Like the walking store, that probably would be a good specialty. Sunglasses or eyeglasses, like Warby Parker, that would be a good specialty. I was in Sunglass Hut yesterday, that would be a good specialty. Maybe a Godiva store, that would be a good specialty. The benefits of stores to consumers. Even though we are moving towards a more digital economy, okay, stores still provide lots and lots of benefit, okay? Consumers do like entertainment. They do like the social interaction. They do like to browse when you don't know what you want. It's a lot easier to do that in a store versus if you don't know what you want, doing that online. Sometimes you need to touch and feel. You need to see the colors. On the internet, colors are still not good. You know, they may describe to you what the color is, but until you actually see it, the colors do not replicate well digitally on screen. We tend to get more personal service when it comes to in-person and face-to-face. There are significantly more cash and credit options when it comes to buying face-to-face in traditional stores. And we have, even though this is starting to disappear, we're starting to see 1-hour delivery. Amazon's doing 2-hour delivery. Amazon someday would like to have the drones drop the stuff off in front of your house. You don't even have to wait 24 hours. Still, in-person stores is more instant gratification. And if you're able to touch, feel, and talk to someone, it all reduces risks. There's less risks with in-person. If we think about internet, and although this text calls it multi-channel, I like to call it omni-channel, by the way. There is no question you get a deeper and broader selection. There's no question that with AI and the CRM systems that exist out there, that Amazon does a much better job of offering personal recommendations without a store clerk having to ask you 1,000 questions and have a half-an-hour conversation. Same thing, the insights into customer behavior and shopping is significantly better to do digitally. More CRM happening here. We are seeing more satisfaction and loyalty due to all this personalization in the CRM. And it is easier to expand market presence because you don't have to open 1 million retail outlets. You can have more market presence without having to have those physical stores. And for some products and for some services, that's actually key. Now, in B2C channels, Okay, the end user is the consumer or the buyer. There are some direct channels. Some. Warby Parker's one. They're the manufacturer, the retailer. They are all in one. Warby Parker manufactures Warby Parker. They go direct. Okay. Now, sometimes there's a manufacturer directly to the retailer. This is Walmart. Walmart only buys direct. They use little to no wholesalers, right? So there are situations where there are product classes that you buy from the wholesaler that goes into the retailer. Maybe it's a product class that's not purchased very frequently, like garden hoses, and it's just not worth it to go to direct. Sometimes there's an agent. These are products that require more detail. Think of down in Florida. I used to live in Florida. In many places in Florida, the water is hard water. Okay, unless you have a water softening system, you really can't drink the water. It's really not good. And if you don't have the water softening system, man, is it hard to clean the toilet and the bathroom. You get these rings of, oh God, it's really difficult. You need the water softener. Well, there's probably an agent involved. It's not a high volume kind of purchase. It only happens every so often before it goes into the retailer. And sometimes there's even more examples where there's an agent and a wholesaler, retailer, and a consumer. Now, in B2B type channels, okay, yes, there is some direct, but B2B more often has wholesalers involved, right? Where this wholesaler, like a Grainger, really is a consolidator for a lot of, what's the paper company? WB Mason. They are a wholesaler kind of type scenario. And there can be buyer's reps. Okay, we call them agents. And then there could be a buyer's rep. There could be wholesalers. And then there could be the actual organizational buyer. A good example here, water heaters, right? Because a lot of the water heater manufacturers don't have an internal sales force. They have external sales forces. So that would be an agent. The agent then sells into various wholesale groups. And then, organizational buyers will then go buy for the homeowners. Like, this would be a Toll Brothers, or an Orleans, or a Hovnanian kind of organizational buyer. So agent, wholesaler, organizational buyer, water heaters. Now, really, when we talk about the place, we really need to talk about supply chain management, because in recent times, this is where all the conversation is happening. And when we get to strategy, we're going to have another conversation about supply chain management when we talk about Porter's value chain, because which is really where this conversation came from. But when we say supply chain management, what we're saying is we are going to look at the entire process. We're going to look at the sourcing of raw materials, the operations, from out of operations to either wholesalers, distributions, or DCs, eventually to stores. Because in the past, when we talked about place, sometimes we talked about channels, but that was like the sales channel, the way I talked about the watches and the cars and the Ferrari. And then we used to talk about logistics too, but logistics was just the physical movement of goods from point A to point B. We never talked about value delivery at every step in the process, and that's what supply chain management is. It's in very, very high demand. It is one of the majors in the MBA program that clearly is in high demand. Go on to LinkedIn and you'll see the gazillions of jobs looking for excellent supply chain management people. And the reason why is if we can figure out ways to reduce costs in the chain, we can get more profitability back to the corporation. Provides a lot of value. Now, just like I said in the previous slide, supply chain, channels, and logistics is all related. And I kind of already talked through all these. They're similar. Just say that supply chain is more holistic across the entire process, from sourcing of raw materials all the way through to final sale. Now, the other part of supply chain management in figuring out ways to add value and to reduce costs is data and information. Okay, we're looking for information flow. Walmart was one of the first companies to start doing this, and it was funny, you know, back in the day when the data wasn't good, they literally would have their managers fly in small planes and land in fields or close by to a Walmart store, and they would just hop and hop and hop, and every week they would hit every one of their stores in an area, and at the end of the week they would put the orders in for the following week. Well, Walmart got better, and they eventually put satellite dishes, and they were one of the first companies to do the EDI, electronic data interchange, to be able to source and know exactly what's being sold by the minute and where. And suppliers can get involved in Walmart's EDI. Walmart wants to save time and energy talking to P&G. So it just sends them the reports and the order amounts and the locations and expects P&G to then place the orders and ship them to the proper locations. EDI and having this data exchange, you know, from the point of sale, from the cash register, all the way back through the supply chain. This is really where, you know, we can start having efficient conversations about where to save money, where to add more value. Because it could be a collaboration process. It could be, you know, the manufacturer can save the retailer money, therefore providing more value by shipping directly the quantities needed in a particular store, drop shipping or cross docking, as opposed to shipping 40 million units to a distribution center and then needing employees to pull from the warehouse, load to the various stores. You know, you're saving 2 or 3 steps by going direct. All right. Push versus pull supply chains. Okay. First, let's talk about push because it's easiest. You know, when we push, think about this in terms from the manufacturer. If it's a push flow, okay, the manufacturer manufactures 50,000 units. It then ships them to the DC centers. The DC centers have salespeople or agents to convince store people to buy X number of units. And then the store people do a lot of promo and push to the consumer to buy. Now, pull is the complete opposite. Is the store starts stacking and then starts ordering, and then the manufacturing knows how much too. You know, think about Dell's was used to Dell computers back in the day was pretty much like this. You know, they would make Teslas like this now. Once the product is sold, the order goes in, the revenue is collected. Then the car gets manufactured. Okay. Then the Dell computer got manufactured. By the way, in these examples, such as Dell used to do the 210 net 30, you know, all the time because they would always have, you know, somewhere between 5 and 10 days worth of inventory on hand. So they had just-in-time inventory relationships with their suppliers. They could take an order and ship it out manufacture and ship out within a 5-day window back in the day. And they could pay the suppliers within a very short window because they had the cash, they already shipped it. It's kind of neat. If we talk a little bit about the distribution center, the DC, you know, we talk about a way of inbound transportation, and we can look at the distribution center, and they use radio frequency ID, they use UPC labels on the side where those things help track where things are in the DC. We try to store less and instead just cross dock, so it comes in on one side of the distribution center, sits in the middle, because in less than 24 hours it's just going to go to the other side to the various locations. So think about, on one side, Procter & Gamble is shipping Crest to a Walmart distribution center, and then on the truck that has all the Crest products, it's not just toothpaste, toothbrushes, mouthwash, dental floss. Instead, it's all the things for the Morristown, New Jersey store, for the South Orange store, for the Summit, New Jersey store. So it comes out of the truck, and all it has to do is wait for the truck for South Orange, New Jersey to pull up on the other side, and then all the P&G and the Unilever and all the suppliers that need to get product in the proper amount, which through EDI was sent to the manufacturer, all that sits in the middle. All those bundles of pallets then get put into the one truck, and it goes to the proper location. So there isn't any packing and unpacking and stocking and pulling of materials from a manufacturer into a warehouse or distribution center to the final location. The distribution center might also get some stuff floor ready. They ship, and then they get stuff to the store. Okay, final slide. So when we think about supply chain management and we think about relationships, it's a partnership. I will develop more value to you if I have more information. There needs to be trust. There needs to be a lot of open communication, especially if we have EDI. We need to have some common goals, right? We become interdependent upon each other, and we create agreements. In the supply chain management world, we tend to reduce the number of warehouses we need. We tend to reduce the number of suppliers we need. We tend to want stronger partnerships with fewer members to make the supply chain more efficient. Okay? Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Have a good day.